Yeah, let's get the Matt Rhule one out the way then, shall we? Because they, as we've said throughout the offseason, that whole infrastructure brain trust there, which is Matt Rhule, right? He hired everyone. He hired like canteen staff. It was the most wild thing. Classic new owner syndrome. I will go and get the rah-rah college coach who's never been in a professional program and allow him to hire my canteen staff. How does that make any sense? I don't understand. And they are essentially fired unless proven otherwise, right? That could be in season to try and get a head start on the Sean Payton sweepstakes. That could be at the end of the year to go and get the next hot shot. I really thought they should have done it this offseason, but they're going to give it one more swing, and they had hoped to try and microwave some success by going and getting one of the big name quarterbacks. They just couldn't pull off any of those deals. And so now they roll in with Sam Darnold or insert name of Matt Corral as a rookie, or trying to go and get Garoppolo or going to get Baker Mayfield, and it just does not look good for them.
Yeah, I mean, I loved Matt Rhule coming out. I thought he'd be a great head coach in the NFL. I really liked what he did. But everything just feels so wrong about it. And and I think it goes back to the inability, and it's not just his fault, but the inability to get a quarterback just puts them in a no-win situation. If you're David Tepper sitting out there, you've got to be thinking that what was it about our ball club that meant that we couldn't land a quarterback? And B, then does that if we get into a situation of bidding war and this time next year with teams like the Dallas Cowboys, with teams like the Arizona Cardinals, with teams like the Washington Commanders, are we going to win a head-to-head battle for Sean Payton? The answer is probably no. So Ollie's point is absolutely apposite. At what point in a struggling Carolina season, which I suspect will happen because Sam Darnold's a quarterback, and you're relying on an injury-addled, Christian McCaffrey. I know that there are young players on the roster that I like, but you are expecting a hell of a jump up from an awful lot of young players to be able to get into a position in which this is not a fireable season for Matt Rhule. And I just think that you can't get into a shootout situation with those teams that I mentioned if you feel like Sean Payton is the answer, because you're just going to lose out.
Although Tepper still remains, as of discussion, because the Broncos deal hasn't gone through, he's the richest owner in the league. So
yeah, absolutely.
He could just keep adding zeros, man, until Sean Payton decides, Carolina not so bad after all.
He could do.
I'm there's a little bit of me that's surprised he's even still there now. He followed the playbook of a guy who's on his way out. Yeah. He fired a coordinator mid-season because he was blaming them rather than taking the blame on himself. And Joe Brady's a guy who was linked with head coaching jobs. People were very excited about coming into the league. And okay, you lose Christian McCaffrey. And I've seen those rare Panthers fans who still feel some shred of hope talking about how good they did look through 3 games when McCaffrey was there, which admittedly they played well to start the season. But yeah, I don't know. There's part of me that feels like if this was a more experienced owner and a situation where, okay, yes, you've got the young players there, but there was a clear development path, maybe a quarterback coming in, that maybe they were just holding on to Matt Rhule for essentially having him for the year there till they got the guy they actually wanted. But
I think Rhule could be a good head coach. I think he could be a good second-time head coach. He made 2 really bad decisions, which was he got Phil Snow, who everyone likes as DC, running really creative stuff that they did together in college. And he tried to get ahead of the game in terms of where the league was going, and he just bet on it 2 years too early. And it's too hard to run such a specific scheme in the NFL because you only have 20-odd players that you're rolling through on a game day. It's not like at Baylor where you can have 4 specialists running the same thing and you just cycle through one athlete, next athlete, next athlete. You can recruit hyper-specifically in college football to build a certain scheme. In the NFL, you have to be more malleable. You're only dressing a certain number of guys. Everyone's injured all the time, and you have to go and get street free agents to slot in on a week's notice, and they can't be running a very specific one-off thing that just that guy does on a game day. So he made the wrong bet on Phil Snow, I think a couple of years too early, and then he made the wrong bet on Joe Brady, who he took at the height of his powers running one of the blandest systems in college football that happened to have first rounders galore and one of the most special quarterbacks ever play the game. And I like Joe Brady, but he knew he couldn't bring that offense to the NFL, right? And they brought a completely different offense to the NFL. So he brought the hotshot guy from college to run this really snazzy RPO-based offense to then not run that offense in the NFL when he probably should have just got a tried and true Shanahan type person, right? And his whole thing is I'm CEO, I'm program builder. And those are the 2 massive whiffs that he made essentially. So I do think he he'll talk another owner in somewhere to getting a job. And I'm with you, Will. If the owner wasn't so tempestuous, I think they try and ride it out and give him another chance. But the problem is now he's spinning his wheels because, as you mentioned, he knifed Joe Brady, threw him completely under the bus, and then was just poison to the coaching community, right? When he has to go and get McAdoo from wherever McAdoo was hiding out and say, here's my rock star OC, it's Ben McAdoo.